October 27, 1962, a Soviet submarine 300 meters below the Atlantic Ocean. No contact with Moscow. Depth charges detonating outside the hull. Inside, a form is passed to a naval officer. 2 signatures already on it. One more, and a nuclear torpedo launches. This is the story of the man who single-handedly stopped World War III. 1962. The United States and the Soviet Union have been locked in a Cold War for 17 years. 2 superpowers, 2 ideologies, 2 nuclear arsenals large enough to end human civilization several times over. Neither side has fired a shot directly at the other. Both sides know that if they do, there is no second move. In October, American spy planes photographed something alarming. On the island of Cuba, 90 miles from the Florida coast, Soviet nuclear missile installations are under construction. President Kennedy orders a naval blockade. Moscow calls it an act of war. Within days, both nations place their nuclear forces on the highest alert in history. The world holds its breath. What the public does not know is this: the Soviet Navy has quietly dispatched 4 submarines into the Atlantic Ocean. Their destination, Cuba. Each submarine carries standard weapons, and one other, a single nuclear torpedo. Yield equivalent to the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The submarine commanders have been given sealed orders. They have not been told what to do if war breaks out while they are underwater. Submarine B-59, Foxtrot class, diesel electric, commissioned 1958. By October 27, the vessel has been at sea for weeks. The air conditioning has failed. Interior temperature, 45 degrees Celsius. The crew is exhausted. Several men have lost consciousness from the heat. They are running silent, deep below the surface, and they have not received a signal from Moscow in days. 300 meters of ocean sits between B-59 and the rest of the world. At that depth, radio contact is impossible. The crew has no newspapers, no transmissions, no way of knowing that above them, on this exact day, the Cuban Missile Crisis has reached its most dangerous point. They do not know that a Soviet surface-to-air missile has shot down an American U-2 spy plane over Cuba. They do not know how close the surface world is to igniting. October 27, 1962, 16:59 hours. The USS Beale locates B-59. Unable to establish radio contact with the submerged vessel, the American crew does what procedure dictates. They begin dropping signaling grenades, small practice depth charges designed to force the submarine to surface. They are not weapons, they are signals. But 300 meters below, the crew of B-59 has no way of knowing that. To them, the explosions are an attack. The explosions rock the submarine. Equipment rattles loose. The lights flicker. Men are thrown from their stations. The vessel has been running on battery power for hours. Oxygen levels are dropping. Carbon dioxide is rising. The heat is unbearable. In these conditions, in this darkness, with no information from the outside world, the commanding officer of B-59 reaches a conclusion. The war has started, and he has a nuclear torpedo. Captain Valentin Savitsky gives the order to prepare the nuclear torpedo for launch. His political officer, Ivan Maslenikov, agrees. Under the Soviet naval protocol governing this specific mission, the authorization of both the captain and the political officer is sufficient to arm the weapon. The torpedo crew begins preparation. In Washington, no one knows. In Moscow, no one knows. The weapon is 40 minutes from being ready. But there is a third man aboard B-59 who holds authority over this decision. His name is Vasily Arkhipov, executive officer of B-59 and chief of staff of the entire submarine brigade. Under the specific orders governing this mission, all 3 senior officers must agree before the nuclear torpedo can be fired. Arkhipov has not yet signed. What happens next, in that corridor, in that heat, in that failing submarine? The historical record is incomplete. We know there is an argument. We know Savitsky is furious. We know the crew is suffering. We know the explosions are continuing outside the hull. What we also know is what Arkhipov argues, that without confirmed contact from Moscow, they cannot know for certain that war has been declared. that firing a nuclear weapon on assumption alone is irreversible, that they must be sure. Arkhipov does not sign the authorization form. He holds his position calmly, without wavering. Savitsky cannot launch without him. The weapon stays in its tube. It is one of the most consequential decisions in the history of the 20th century, made by a man that almost nobody has ever heard of, in a broken submarine, with no information, under conditions designed to produce exactly the wrong outcome. Arkhipov persuades Savitsky to surface the submarine and attempt contact with Moscow before taking any further action. B-59 rises. It breaks the surface into the gray Atlantic daylight and is immediately surrounded by American destroyers. The standoff is over. The submarine is escorted away. The nuclear torpedo remains unfired. Above the water on both sides, no one knows how close it came. October 27, 1962 will later be called Black Saturday. On this single day, a Soviet missile shoots down an American plane over Cuba. A separate American U-2 accidentally enters Soviet airspace. Kennedy and Khrushchev exchange their most urgent messages. And 300 meters below the Atlantic, one man refuses to sign a form. None of these events are connected. Any one of them could have been enough. B-59 returns to the Soviet Union. There is no celebration. The mission is classified. The crew is criticized by the Soviet Navy for surfacing, seen internally as a failure to complete the mission. Arkhipov receives no medal, no commendation, no public acknowledgement of any kind. He is simply returned to service. The world he helped preserve has no idea he exists. The full story of what happened aboard B-59 remains classified for 40 years. The West knows nothing of the nuclear torpedo, nothing of the argument, nothing of the unsigned form. Arkhipov continues his naval career. He reaches the rank of vice admiral. He retires. He lives quietly. He dies in 1998, 4 years before the world learns what he did. October 2002. A conference in Havana marks the 40th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Former Soviet and American officials sit in the same room for the first time to discuss what actually happened. It is here that the existence of the nuclear torpedo aboard B-59 is revealed publicly for the first time. Robert McNamara, Kennedy's Secretary of Defense, later says he feels physically ill upon hearing it. He had spent 40 years believing the crisis had been managed. He did not know how close it came to not being managed at all. The American destroyers that dropped those signaling grenades never knew the submarine beneath them carried a nuclear weapon. The officers in Washington tracking the crisis never knew a launch had been prepared. Kennedy never knew. Khrushchev never knew. The entire diplomatic resolution of the Cuban Missile Crisis, celebrated ever since as a triumph of statecraft, occurred with no one on either side aware that a third scenario had nearly played out entirely on its own, 300 meters below the surface. Vasily Arkhipov was not a politician. He was not a decision maker at the highest levels of government. He was a naval officer in an overheated submarine with failing equipment, no information, and every condition working against a clear head. He was outnumbered in that argument 2-1. He held his position anyway. History does not record what he was thinking. It only records what he did not do. The Cuban Missile Crisis officially ended the following day. The world exhaled. Kennedy and Khrushchev received the credit. History moved on. Vasily Arkhipov returned to his career, and then to his retirement, and then to a quiet death in a country that no longer existed, the Soviet Union having collapsed a decade before him. His wife Olga later said he understood the weight of what had happened in that submarine. He simply did not talk about it. Some things, perhaps, are too large for words. Vasily Arkhipov never told his story, so we are telling it for him. If this is the first time you have heard his name, share this video, because the least we can do for the man who saved the world is make sure the world knows who he was. Subscribe for more stories of history forgot to tell you.